How's it going, man?
Good, good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good myself. You hear of anything crazy going on in the news this week?
I did hear about a neo-Nazi rally in Noonan, Georgia, a while back.
I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, it was just pretty much what you expected. It was a rally of neo-Nazis. They burned a swastika. I think it was like for Hitler's birthday or something. I don't remember.
Oh, okay. So they're celebrating
Yeah.
Hitler's birthday.
Yeah, I remember people were asking the locals about how they felt about it. And they said the locals pretty much said they want nothing a part of it. They just don't want people to bother the historical parts.
I
And
see.
on top of that, a lot of shops that are around that area closed down and took some of their key items with them as well in fear of looters.
Oh, they thought like other race groups would come by and start looting,
Yeah.
or did they think that the Klan members were going to be looting? Not the Klan members.
No, they
right?
think they were just expecting the worst to happen. That's
Yeah,
it.
like a revolution to come over there and start.
Nah, more like probably like a race war or something. Like
Yeah,
some people
some-
would come there to like protest it or something.
Yeah.
But from what I've heard, it was just a simple gathering of
Hmm.
neo-Nazis.
I'm assuming a lot of news crews were there.
I saw some photos, but other than that, I didn't think there was that much.
Where did this take place?
Noonan, Georgia. It was like in west
Georgia.
of Georgia.
Man, racism's out there.
Yeah, it's always out there.
I think it's out there. I think some of it's put a little bit to a spectrum that it's not at, and some of it's kind of over magnified. But I do believe there is racism out there, and that some people are targeted, and that there are instances where, because I've seen instances on like YouTube and stuff like that, where people are being called racial slurs and stuff like that. But personally, I haven't seen it myself. Now, I've heard people talking about it, so I know it's out there in person. But if you've seen like an interview with Lil Wayne, have you seen that interview where they're asking him about racism? Super cool interview. So he kind of gets a little upset or mad, I guess. But basically, what happened is he was having an interview done by some news anchor, and they're talking about racism, and they were asking him if he's ever been, a victim of racism, and he's like, honestly, he's like, not that I could remember, man. He's like, no one's ever been racist towards me. It's like, I grew up in the hood in Miami. No, he's like, no one's ever been racist towards me. I've never experienced it. And they kept trying to like egg him on to say, come on, there's got to be like an instance where you could remember. And he's like, listen, man, he's like, I know what you're trying to do. He's like, you're trying to get me out here to fill your agenda, basically, and to say that I've experienced something that I haven't. So he's like, I haven't experienced it myself. And he's like, it might be out there. It probably is out there, but it just hasn't happened to me.
Yeah, no, it's out there. But if it didn't happen to you, then it didn't happen to you.
Then
And,
you can't relate.
So like these news anchors, they try to get those stories out there just to like start something, like try to get like views on their articles and shit. They try to get people to listen to that.
The agenda always changes. Like
Exactly.
if you remember what was it like a few years ago, like 3 years ago, it was like really, really big on police brutality.
Yeah.
Huge on police brutality.
Pretty much, it was like there's like pretty much all kind of videos coming out, like white officers, like.
And that's all it was.
Yeah,
That's all it was in the news. And I'm like,
yeah.
wow. Like all
Because
these,
that's what they show, but they don't want to show like stuff like good officers actually embracing like diversity and stuff like that. Like
there's
I remember
very few good moments caught by officers that are put in limelight.
Yeah, no, there's plenty of good moments. It's just again, they're not shown. They're not
During that whole uproar, though, during the whole uproar of police on black or on white brutality, like police brutality in general.
I remember
people.
I saw this like just a photo. It wasn't much, but I remember pretty much that this officer was given like a call, like there was a disturbance, like just pretty much just black kids playing basketball in the streets, and somebody called the cops on them.
Oh,
They didn't
where
like
he played
it.
basketball with them?
Yeah, and he just like show up, and just started playing hoops with them.
Yeah, and he told the old lady that called, he was like, why are you ruining these kids' fun? He was like, they could be out selling dope and stuff like that. So he's like, if you called, the cops on them for doing that and they turn to go and sell drugs, wouldn't you think of yourself as a bad person or something along those lines?
Yeah.
And then they were just playing basketball, and then he's like, you know what, guys, I'm going to start playing basketball with you guys.
Yeah.
And he started shooting hoops. That was cool. There's a lot of good moments caught by cops.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, like I saw one where a cop, like, was dancing with some guy or something like that. He pulled over and like had some dancing contest with a guy or something like that. And it was good because it was for the community, so it kind of gave a community that has a bad rep for police, a little bit of a better one for the new generation to come. So, because those kids won't have all bad memories, so those kids will grow up and have kids, and they'll believe that not all cops are bad, which is a good start. So, I think police officers doing little incentives like that on their own free will are perfect, and it should be done a little more often.
Yeah, I remember I saw this like just a video of a cop pulling over like a car, and there was like a black lady and her son in there, and pretty much he was kind of just like giving a rundown. But then turns out he was like, "Well, it's National Ice Cream Day, and I just wanted to give you some ice cream," and that's what he did. And then she was like, "Oh boy," and
That's
like it
very
was like a
funny.
sigh of relief. And then they both just had a laugh, and then she said, "Have a good day," and stuff like that.
Your tail lights out.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, exactly.
that's funny, man. Yeah, but yeah, back to the whole Nazi thing. That's pretty crazy. It's,
I mean, I heard the story of a black man actually confronting Nazis and befriending them. Like he just pretty much starts having conversations, hearing them out, listening to their
Mhm.
problems and why, and then
Right.
he just ends up with the question like, "Why do you hate me?" And they all would say, "I don't know."
damn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he would befriend them, and then he would actually like make them start realizing like differently, like start looking at life differently, and just
It's like you dislike behaviors of some people of my race.
yeah,
You know, you dislike maybe the music, or you dislike maybe some of the culture, but you know, me as a person, why do you hate me? And that's a really simple question that someone should be able to answer, especially if you have a whole group based off of that.
exactly.
Yeah. But basically, with this whole, clan thing's been around since forever. You know, they used to burn crosses, and then I think it's illegal to burn crosses now, or something of that nature.
Yeah, I think so.
But
I'm not entirely sure.
I know that whenever that whole, what was that guy's name? Something Shepherd, the guy who passed away from the police brutality. He was saying he couldn't breathe and he suffocated. His name was Shepherd.
Mm.
Something Shepherd. And
There's so many police brutalities.
it was like the really most popular one, the most popular. I forgot what it was, but his daughter died recently too. His daughter was a protester for it, and she actually died. I think of some heart issue. But, anyways, there was a incident where a police officer basically smothered the guy, and he passed away. And that was looked under, and that was speculated for a long time, and I don't think anything ever happened to the police. But what do you think about stuff like that goes on?
Happens all the time. It just depends on who catches at the moment, like, and how out there in the media it is. Like, I mean, I don't like it. I don't like hearing about it. Like, it sucks.
Have you ever known anybody or that's been kind of victimized, or like because of their race or ethnicity?
I mean, here where we live, police officers do, like, really, they, like, categorize people and they pull them over based on their, like, ethnicity.
Right.
And that does happen where we live, and I don't want to say where we live, but they do that for the case of, like, marijuana and stuff like that. And
I've seen that.
And on top of that, for deporting as well. So they tend to pull over a lot of Hispanics, like,
Right.
especially if you like Mexican and Honduran, stuff like that.
Right.
And that's kind of just goes on. And I wouldn't say that ever happened to me, because I did get pulled over once, but it was because my license plate was like expired. So that's a completely different subject. But I mean, again, I don't know anybody personally who's been like racially identified for that,
Right.
stuff like that.
Yeah, I definitely know what you're talking about now that you bring that up, because people who get pulled over for having a weird, like, I know a lot of people who actually smoke,
Mhm.
and they, go and they buy from a dealer, and they're driving back home, and they'll get pulled over because of the make of their car. So if they're driving like a old school Honda Civic,
Like a Beamer.
like a broken one, like a
Yeah.
like beginning of the 90s, early 90s Beamer, or late 90s Honda Civic, they know. They're just like, oh, they're definitely probably, and they'll kind of tell you. They'll tell you, and they'll wait till you don't put a turn signal on or something.
Yeah, they'll
and,
find a reason to pull you over.
and they'll pull you over.
Exactly, but
Yeah, I know people who have gotten busted for little shit like that.
mm-hmm.
Petty things like that have gotten people put away, or at least gotten them like a huge fine or whatnot.
Yeah, I know a buddy of mine likes to call those cars like straight up jail bait.
Basically, that's what it is, because it's a huge, it's like a lure. It's
Yeah,
telling cops, oh, I'm probably a 20-something with probably over a gram in my car.
Yeah.
And then they're just on you because they got to
Mhm.
make a quota
Mm-hmm.
for arrests and whatnot.
Yeah.
But so I don't know if you've ever seen, though, there was a video of Morgan Freeman, and he was talking to a newscaster. And this is also going back to the whole Lil Wayne story on how they were trying to, goat him into saying, oh, yeah, I know that this has happened before. But anyways, this guy was just talking to him. I think it was on 60 Minutes, actually. Or maybe it was a news reporter. There was two of them.
Is it about like somebody asked him about National Black Day, something?
Yeah,
like
it was like, I think there was two.
African American Day. I forgot what it's called.
Yeah, I think there was two interviews that he's talked to about racism.
I remember he said that he was just like, I wish we could just stop doing that.
He's like, I don't want a Black History Month.
Yeah, there we go. That's what I was talking about.
I don't want a Black History Month.
That's what
Yeah.
I was talking about.
Yeah, he's like, I don't want a Black History Month. And the guy's like, well, why? And he's like, well, do you want a White History Month? And he's like, well, no. And the guy just goes to follow on and say, well, I'm Jewish. And he's like, okay, well, do you want a Jewish History Month? We don't have one of those, do we? And he's like, oh, no, we don't. He's like, do you want one? He's like, oh, no, I don't want one. And then Morgan Freeman's like, oh, well, why not? Why don't you want one? So he follows and says, well, he kind of avoids the question. He's like, well, don't you want to like celebrate the history of your people? He's like, Black history is American history, which is true.
It is.
Black history is American history. And he's like, I was born in America, therefore my history is American history. And he's like, okay, well, how do we stop racism if, we don't celebrate, your guys' culture and blah, blah, blah. And then Morgan Freeman just stop talking about it.
Yeah.
That's how we stop racism. Just stop talking about it in general. Because the more you speak of things that happened over 100 years ago, the more it's going to keep coming up and coming up and coming up. And, you have people, the whole Black Lives Matter movement that happened a while ago.
That isn't helping.
That didn't help anything.
That's like the new Black Panther movement.
That's what people were comparing it to.
Yeah, like it's not really, they're being more of a public nuisance, if anything, like disturbing all kinds of people. And if, they see another, Black person who's not agreeing with them, then they'll just look at them like something different. It's just like,
right.
Like, come on, get your priorities straight. Like, what are you trying to do?
Exactly. And that's one of the crazier things. We could have these far left movements and these far right movements, and neither or are beneficial. Because there's total extremes to both sides. But so that brings to another topic of like, people are saying that, Morgan Freeman's on the side of let's not talk about it and all this. And I was talking to somebody about racism too a number of years ago, and they brought up the fact, they're like, okay, well, why do we have all black colleges? Why do we have all black colleges? And I said, well, you know what? I don't know. I'm like, that's a little racist, maybe. Or maybe they just want a select.
Technically, they're discriminating against all kinds of people who isn't black.
Technically speaking, it's discrimination.
Like, I'm Hispanic, and if I would try to go to that school, it's like, no.
You'd be denied.
Yeah, I would be denied. So it's not just against a white person as well. It's against an Asian, like I said, Hispanic. And,
right, so can that be considered not Aryan, because that's like not the Aryan Brotherhood in a way, but can that be considered some sort of racism towards one culture? Sure, that could
kind of similar to an Aryan churches, like like you said, like whites only, like those churches exist.
Oh yeah, they definitely do, and I mean it's kind of sad.
It is, like,
it just doesn't make sense because our pigments are just pigments in my picture.
Yeah,
I mean I don't really have any issue with anyone
flesh
of
and
skin
blood
color.
and the same inside and everything.
As long as you're not hurting people, causing any sort of chaos, like a terrorism group, or you're not out there molesting children, hurting animals, doing shit like that, then you're okay in my book.
Yeah.
You know, you got to be doing some pretty crazy shit for me not to like you, and that's not even a race. It's just you as a person.
Exactly.
So I'm wondering what a group does so much that gets people not to like that whole race in particular. Because I remember,
I think it's just stereotypes, and stereotypes, they really do exist. I hate to say it, but
of course, and you know,
Inst-
they're part of comedy sketches all the time.
all the time. And on top of that, you always see them in the media, so it's like easy for people here in
To pick it
America,
off.
especially, to stereotype that. That's why
Right.
like a lot of black people think that there's nothing but racist white old men, while a lot of old men think they're ignorant black people.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. That goes to comedians.
Yeah.
I think comedians have a huge role in delivering other races to audiences. So maybe like Richard Pryor. Like, do you know who Richard Pryor is?
Nope.
He was a obviously a comedian, but he was in a movie called Hear No Evil, See No Evil. And basically a lot of his comedy revolved around black people or white people, and he would give jokes based off of, you know, how they acted as people in general, which gave people a bias on the race.
Yeah.
So if people said that, all Asians can't drive, you know what I mean? Like, Asians can't drive. That's like a really common stereotype.
Yeah, very common.
Or that they have straight A's and they're good at math.
Yeah.
Very common too. I knew an Asian in high school. He was failing math. So I knew people like that who were totally not of that stereotype. Or another one is, I don't know. Damn, dude, I don't know stereotypes like that because I don't stereotype people. But those are like some simple, easy stereotypes that people have, and you could easily negate that and say that doesn't exist because you know of a person.
Yeah.
So one joke told to millions of people multiple times has the ability to make impressions that last forever, is what I'm trying to get to.
It does.
So that's something that I think people should look out for. But then again, people should be adults and know how to take that joke and not apply it to a whole race of people. I think
exactly.
I just think it also boils down to most adults being too childish to handle stuff like that. Because if you're gonna hear a comment about a race or someone of a race and apply it to an entire race, then you sound stupid. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't make sense.
And then another thing is, like, some people, like, you know, some famous people, like, if they don't get their way, sometimes they'll just make it a race thing.
Yeah, you know,
like a good example, like Tyron Woodley.
yeah, I was about to say Tyron Woodley, man. Yeah, go on.
Like he's kind of complaining that he doesn't get the same treatment like Connor does, but he hasn't really done much, and that's him as a person, not his color. You know, he's black, by the way, and he's just not a very interesting guy. But he makes it as a race thing, saying like, "Oh, it's because I'm black" and stuff like that.
Right.
It's like,
yeah. So Tyron Woodley is currently the welterweight champion, and he was having a gripe on the Joe Rogan Experience about how people don't appreciate him and how he is kind of not officially the champion because he's not being promoted as a champion. And that's because his fights are most of the time boring. Honestly, he has a lot of talent, obviously, to be champion. You have to beat the best of the best to stay there. But the thing is, he's not being promoted as a lot of other people, just like Conor McGregor or, hell, maybe even Kevin Lee. Any of these people, because he doesn't promote himself well. He doesn't open his mouth. He's very well spoken, but he doesn't know. I've never heard him talk trash about anybody. I've never heard him badmouth somebody to their face. I've never seen any of that happen.
yeah.
So that's the reason why he's not being promoted, is because he's not a promotable person.
Yeah,
He doesn't have any drama. He doesn't have any backstories with people.
technically, that's what we like to call not champ material.
Yeah, he's like champ material. He's just not.
He's not showing it.
Yeah, he's definitely got the talent. I don't know what to say. He just doesn't have the
Charisma.
charisma, and he doesn't have
And that has nothing to do
selling
with like,
potential.
it has nothing to do with his skin color. That's just him as a person.
It's just him as a person.
Like-
It's just him as a person. Now, I wouldn't take that if I made a joke out of it, and I wouldn't take that and apply it to an entire race.
Yeah.
You know, that they're all don't have charisma. See, that's obviously stupid. But if a really funny comedian, like let's say, I don't know, Kevin Hart, or let's say one of these guys made a joke about people not having black people not having charisma, or Tyron Woodley not having charisma, and he told it a million times in such a way that someone could manipulate that and say, oh, maybe they're not all charismatic. But that's over like years of a joke being all around, you know, that
Exactly.
becomes like a bias. But that's a potential for something like that to happen too. It's always a potential for a new stereotype to occur. You know, but yeah, Tyron Woodley's just not. He's just not a sellable guy. Basically.
Yeah.
It's not. This is not the way it is. But I have, now that I'm thinking about it, I think I've seen racism maybe one time, maybe.
I did see one subtle moment in my entire life, but this was like back when I was like a kid. I do remember something.
Okay, you go first.
So I remember me and my buddy were walking to like a CVS at the time. And when we finally got to the CVS, there was like just this guy in front of us. And then he was black, by the way. And there was this old man coming up on our right. He waits, like he just stops, stares at the black guy, waits for him to pass. Yeah, like he just waits for him to pass. And it's so noticeable too, because he's kind of, he gets kind of stiff. He kind of starts holding like his sides a little bit. And then he just like stares the guy down a little bit. And then even the guy who was walking in front of us noticed it too, just like, what the fuck?
Right.
Exactly. So like that was like a subtle moment I saw.
You know what? I can comment on that a little bit, because people forget that we're animals.
Mm-hmm.
We're intelligent beings. Some of us are, but to our core, we're animals. We have instincts, and that guy who was kind of clenching up might have been alpha male from wherever he's from, his household or whatever, and also he probably had some bad experience with maybe people of the black race, or
I don't know.
he might even have issues with Mexicans. You don't know.
I mean, the thing is, he didn't have a problem with us. Like,
Okay.
when we walked up to him, he just continued following us. And
Now, what race was this guy?
the old man, he was white.
He's a white guy.
Yeah, he was an old white guy. Like I said, it was just the black guy in front of us. Like, and me and my buddy were both Hispanics, and he didn't have a problem with us as all walking in front of him.
Right.
In fact, after the black guy walked, he just walked in front of us. So that's what I'm trying to say. It's just like,
That kind of racist.
Yeah,
he was like afraid of him in a way.
yeah.
That he was gonna get something was gonna happen. Yeah, I can see that being really racist.
I mean, like I said, I didn't know that it was just a random stranger.
Unconscious.
I don't know his decision, but it looked straight up that
Yeah.
he just looked uncomfortable.
It was kind of like a conscious, unconscious decision that he was making to avoid paths with this guy, because like going back to us being animals and whatnot, we tend to, and I do it too sometimes. You know, if you're in a room full of guys, you know, you have this alpha male sort of role about yourself, you know, and then you go into a room or an area with multiple men in it, and he was just more threatened of this black man. So maybe he was poking out his chest and waited there and stood his ground and let him pass or whatever, just so he didn't have to.
No, the thing is
Clash.
that it didn't look like it didn't look like a dominance thing. It just looked like straight up.
Straight up, he just didn't want to cross paths with this dude.
Yeah, like prospect because he was black. And again, it was just random strangers. That's what I was talking about. Like he just straight up saw him, decided to let him walk past, and that's it. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, I don't think it's a dominance thing. It's just because he's an old guy and it was a young guy. So I'm just like, and he didn't, like, he just got like this. Like, he just got like kind of slouchy a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know. He just looked tense.
Yeah, you know. Okay.
I don't think it was like a dominance thing. Like,
So I totally, this like lost my, like through my memory. It didn't really stick, but I just thought of it. I was staying with a friend somewhere, and we were talking and whatnot, and the topic came up about like, oh, have you ever slept with a black person or whatever? And you know, I've been with two black girls, and I'm not, you know, racist in any which way. So I was like, yeah, I've been with like two black girls and that's it. And they were just like, oh, that's weird. We didn't like think of you as that type. I was like, what do you mean that type? They're like, to have jungle fever. And I was like, what? I was like, what do you mean jungle fever? I'm like, that's something that I've heard people say, and it's like, it's a joke. It's also a comedy joke. Jungle fever is a joke, and I forgot who told it, but it was coined in a comedian sketch, which is kind of funny. So basically, I was like, what do you mean? Like, I was like, it's only been two. Like, it's not a big deal. And they're like, oh, they're like, yeah, but you'll go with more than. I'm like, what's the big deal if I did? If I did, like, what's the big problem?
Yeah.
And they were just like, oh, nothing. They were just, I'm like, have you ever, been with a black guy or black girl or whatever? And they were just like, they're like, ew, no. And I was like, why ew? Like, what do you mean? What do you?
Did you press it on them?
Yeah, I pressed it. I was like, I kept asking them why. I was like, I'm so curious of why. And they were just like, it's nasty. They're just like, they don't appeal. And one of them was Asian, and the other one was white. So that right there, it gives you a little bit of a cultural thing. And when I told them about it, they just thought it was gross. They didn't say any other reason. They didn't say, oh, because, they didn't say anything racist. They just said it's just, they're not my type, basically. But they did say it was gross. And this also brings me to another point. Whenever I talk to a lot of my white friends, and I'm like kind of white myself. I'm like European, white, whatever, Greek. I'm some shit. I don't even know. Italian, Irish, something. Anyways, so I'm talking to my white friends, and they tell me, oh, we don't have problems with black people. Because I know a lot of white people who are dating black people. So obviously they don't have an issue with them at all. But a lot of my friends that are Latin, they're from Cuba, or they're from Puerto Rico, or they're from or Mexico in particular. They don't like black people.
Oh yeah, those places they don't.
And it's never talked about. I've never heard anyone bring this point up. That's why I'm bringing it up now. Is that people from like those countries really don't like them. It's so much to the point. And when I was in this last relationship that I was in, her father was a construction worker, or he owned a construction company, and there was a joke going on between him and his brother or something of that nature. He came in the house one day and he was just like, oh, his daughter had broken up with her boyfriend, and he was just like, oh, you better watch out because the next boy that's going to go with your daughter is going to be black. And he's like, why would you wish that upon me? He was like, why would you? I was like, Jesus, that's really weird. That's really weird. And then she was in the room when they made that comment, and she was like, ew, I wouldn't date a, and she dropped the N-bomb. She's like, and I was like, whoa, that's like the most racist actually that I've ever heard. So I could definitely understand where a lot of that's coming from now, but it's weird that most of that's coming from that race.
You know what's funny though? At the same time, it's sort of the opposite too, because at my old workplace, like the Hispanics and this Haitian guy, they just got along so well. Like they just clicked very well. Like it was just a good click. Like immediately they found ways to connect. They had jokes. They had fun like talking to each other. I was just like, see, like it's like it can be different at the same time.
It can.
So it's like, yeah,
because it goes back to not all of one ethnic group or race of people are the same.
It's the household.
It's the household you're raised in, and it's the people you hang around.
Exactly.
You are who you hang around, basically. And that is a true saying. I believe it. Because I've seen people who have been totally against drugs in general, and now they're the biggest pill junkies that I know. And they used to be so against it. They're like, oh, hell no, that's crazy. But now they're all taking all these kinds of drugs, and they're experimenting like crazy. And I'm just like bewildered.
Yeah. In my workplace, there's like these truck drivers who come to deliver the groceries and stuff like that, to the food and all that. They come in here and they're black, and like immediately the cooks and them, they just start sparking conversation of soccer and stuff like that. And then sometimes my kitchen manager would be like, yo, you want to take some food on your way back home? And he'd be like, yeah, man, sure. It's like that. That's why I'm just like, see, it's like, yeah, Hispanics definitely are racist, but at the same time, it's also like very accepting. They don't care.
Would you say, yeah, it's like we just covered, you know, it's that it's a majority group.
Like pretty much, if they can just find something good in the person that there's like that person's good in my book, I can care less.
Right. Just
So-
don't date my daughter.
Nah.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Like, you know, there, because there could be people like that too. There could be guys who are like, oh yeah, we're cool as coworkers, nice guy. Maybe I'll go out and have a beer with him.
If
His son can't date my daughter.
If anything, the guys at my work, they have more problem with white people.
Okay, see,
That's what
works
I'm trying to
both
say. Like
ways.
they don't have problem with anybody of any other color, but it's like white people they tend to have a little more problem with, and I'll hear them talking crap about that
Right.
sometimes. And if they hear like, and if like a white person at my job just like messes up a little bit, they've been like, God damn it, they just fuck around all the time, like they don't give a shit.
Because they're white.
So sometimes like that, sometimes no. It's
Shit.
like I said, it's like weird. It just changes all the time. It's different. They'll be racist at any kind of people they want. It all depends on the household, stuff like that. Like, there's this comedian, Gabriel Iglesias.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, his girlfriend, she's like, I think Cuban, I don't know, but she's like really pale. And then one day he brings to introduce her to the mom, and the mom just starts in like, why the fuck did you bring that green guy in my fucking house? And then the woman starts speaking in Spanish. She's like, oh my God, you're Hispanic. I'm so sorry.
What the? Fuck?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, again.
I got a funny story. This is actually in my family. So my dad's adopted, and his adopted family's Cuban. So, and my dad's actually really dark. Like, not extremely dark, but people have thought he was black before. You know, and when he went to military school in Georgia, he went to the Georgia Military Academy. People there, he told me he got called, you know, there all the time.
Yeah.
People said that they called him that, and he was basically not alienated, but kind of, sort of. And then whenever he got out of there, he, you know, went home, lived his life or whatever, and his mom was she doesn't like white people that much.
Right.
But she kind of does. Now, she's a Republican, which is weird, and she doesn't like black people, but she likes Hispanic people. So she didn't vote for Obama, but she voted for Mitt Romney when he ran. So, and the story is all lining up to this incident that she had that was really funny around Christmas time of 2013, 2014, somewhere around there. Anyways, so we have a member of the family. His name's Simon, and my grandma is really keen on having everyone in this family speak Spanish, and most people only speak English. So she came into the house one day, and he says "Hola," you know, to my grandma, and she's like, "Oh, you're finally, you know, learning the language." And she said it in broken English because her English is not that good. And he's like, no. He's like, I don't know Spanish. He's like, you know, I only know English. I live in America. Like, why would I know any other language? And then she got insanely crazy. She just broke out. She's like, what? What did you say? And she chased him around the house with a sandal, dude. She took off her sandal and was chasing him around the house in Christmas time.
Oh, goddamn.
Yeah, and that's just insane. That's insanity. You know, one time I was staying with her, and I didn't know what she was saying in Spanish, and she threw a Spanish dictionary at me. And I was like, what the fuck's going on with this lady? I had to call my dad and say, hey, your mom's having a fit over here. I don't know Spanish, so she's throwing a Spanish dictionary at my face. I need you to come over here and stop this. So it's crazy, man. It really is. So in your opinion, like, what do you think would be the ultimate end to stop racism?
Well, let me say this.
What steps do you think we need to take?
But there's this one thing I do think it will help a lot. Go out and see the world. Go out and see the world.
Get cultured.
Yeah, go out there, get your culture shock going, see how everything's going, like see why people are like different, why they come here and don't act the same way. Like, you know, like Charlie Chaplin, this old actor back in the day, said it himself. Like, he said that the best cure for racism is just go out and see the world, meet all kinds of different people. You'll be surprised how you'll find someone just like you.
Yeah, so I could definitely agree with that for sure. That sounds interesting. And you know what would be cool is if they implemented maybe a eighth period class, or maybe in schools.
Here's the thing about that.
And they brought
it's gonna be taken wrong. You know, it's gonna be like, oh, you're forcing my kid to do that, and that's why I'm just like,
a multicultural class.
It's better if they want to, then they'll do it.
Dinero.
Nah.
Money's the issue. You
Another
can't fly out to India and to Japan and all these places. You know what I mean? So the easiest way to do it, I think, is to implement it in public school system. And there's crazier things to complain about nowadays. Of course, there's going to be some uproar about it, but if your kid spends an extra 20 minutes in a class...
All right, but see, that's the thing. That's just the kid. What about the parents? The kid's still going to go home back to a household that's not accepting about this. So that's what I'm trying to tell you, man. Just like those parents are going to be like, you're trying to brainwash my kid. You see what I'm getting at now?
I can see what you're getting at, but if it's part of public school curriculum, they can homeschool their kid. I guarantee you there'll be a lot more people staying in school rather than homeschooling. And they won't complain. They'll complain about it, but if it's part of a curriculum, they can't really bitch about it unless they want to pull their kid out of school.
But now here's the thing I'm going to bring up. How is it going to be effective at all, or is it going to be a waste of time and money?
Well, if you keep a kid for an extra 20 to 30 minutes, or if you implement an eighth period, a cultural period, and it could be conducive of a few things. It can have maybe workshops such as cooking. Learning another culture's food isn't bad at all. And I don't see how someone could think we're brainwashing their kids learning how to cook. You know, and
there's nut jobs out there, man.
Yeah, there's crazy people out there. I think it'd be really cool though to implement some sort of maybe eighth period or some sort of time slot. Maybe school starts 30 minutes earlier so you can hit a cultural class, because I'm telling you, it's expensive to travel. And then like no one's going to be able to do it. So maybe if we put a kid that is in a racist or an assumptuous household, then maybe we can make them think for themselves. And maybe they won't take it home. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. Maybe you'll have one or two parents make the news headlines with, oh, you're brainwashing my kids saying that not all black people are bad. Now, who's going to look bad in that article? Not the school. The parents will look terrible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's my only argument towards it. So if someone got mad thinking that we're brainwashing their kid that not all black people are bad, then someone's going to look like a dick.
It's probably just me being pessimistic then.
But you see, well, at least I'm coming back with some sort of argument.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, if they wanted to make headwaves with it, they would look stupid.
Yeah.
You know?
But at the same time, like, there's some just stubborn people out there, so they don't care if they look stupid. They're just
there to make waves. To rock the boat.
Yeah.
That's all they want to do is rock the boat.
Yeah.
And that's all anyone does nowadays, honestly.
On top of that, if they get voices that agree with them, they're going to hear the voices that agree with them more than the voices that disagree with them.
Then they can start a fucking podcast and open their and start speaking their own word. Fuck them. It's a free country. You can speak all the stupid stuff you want to, or you can preach whatever you want to preach, and whoever wants to listen is open to it. That's what makes the country awesome.
Yep.
So, but no, I definitely agree with that. You know, culture. People don't have enough culture in them. And that would be one really good way to get rid of it. And honestly, going back to Morgan Freeman's tactic is just forget about it, man.
Yeah, just stop talking about it.
Let it be water under the bridge. And just, it happened and it's part of history, but let's let it be ancient history.
Yeah, let's not repeat it.
Yeah, let's not repeat it and keep it living, because we're keeping the memory of it alive, and we're creating hatred in our newborns and whatnot and our society. And we, you know, whenever we get pulled over, we make an excuse like, or I hear like from my friends, like when I was talking about earlier, whenever they've gotten pulled over, their parents get something, they always say, oh, like, you know, my ancestors were like whipped, or my ancestors were treated poorly, and I'm here working my ass off and I'm getting tickets and stuff like that. And then my friends were like, how does that correlate to you getting a ticket for making an illegal turn? You did make an illegal turn.
Yeah,
you got pulled over. How does your ancestors being slaves correlate to you getting a ticket now?
And that's how I said, like, back to like Tyrone Woodley thing. He's like, people make it a race thing.
Yeah.
It's like when they don't want to like admit something that there's something wrong with them, then they're just gonna make it a race thing. That's why the joke, like, it's 'cause I'm black, exists.
Guess what? Derek Lewis He's a heavyweight. Is he? Shit. Yeah, he's a heavyweight. Derek Lewis is a heavyweight going up against Francis Ngannou. Both black. And guess what? They're promoting the shit out of that fight.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they are.
Yeah, and then Francis Ngannou, who went against Stipe Miocic and lost, they promoted the shit out of that fight too. And guess what? He's black. So Tyron Woodley has no excuse to say they're not promoting
Also,
him because of that.
DC, he gets plenty of limelight.
Yeah, and
DC gets.
That's a good add-on. DC, man, he gets tons of. Dana White says he's the best light heavyweight of all time.
Yeah, he thinks he's a beast.
Yeah, he is.
Like, it's not a race thing. It's just straight
John
up.
Jones,
Exactly. GSP. That may be like an old name that some people may not know though.
and he's white. He's Canadian as fuck. But no, seriously, man. John Jones, DC, Derek Lewis, Francis Ngannou, they're all getting this. And yeah, don't get me wrong. He has had some success, Tyron, but he's definitely successful. He's a champion, but he's just not going to sell unless, he changes his act. He needs to have some sort of...
Starts becoming interesting.
Yeah, become interesting. And if he goes up against Wonderboy Thompson again, and because this will be the third fight that they have, and if he makes it really, amp it up, then I could definitely see that going. But other than that, man, I think you could stop a lot of racism by just not talking about it and just forgetting about it and
moving on,
man. And just...
If you don't like a person because of him being a person, then that's fine.
It's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a lot of generations to die off, because they're teaching their kids these things, and it's going to be taught down throughout the line until one kid doesn't teach their kid that, and then that kid doesn't teach their kid that, So it's a slow process, but eventually, once those generations kind of die off, racism will be less and less. I can see that just working out just as a natural effect. But I can also see a new racism coming about over something. It's always something that someone's not going to like about a person or what they wear, dress, eat.
Yeah.
Bullshit. Like, everyone talks shit about vegans. Everyone talks shit about... I talk shit about vegans. Shit. My sister's a vegetarian, and I make fun of her all the time. I'm like, oh, you want to eat this,
I remember hipsters were made fun of a lot.
Yeah.
Still kind of are.
Yeah, still kind of are.
People with gluten-free diets are also made fun of a lot.
That's fucking stupid.
Yeah, it
That's
is pretty
fucking
stupid. Actually, funny story. In work, there was this incident where this woman got outed for a gluten-free bun for her burger, right? And then she got really upset that we took it out of the packaging because she said you guys cross-contaminated.
Oh.
Because we have French fries and they're that, so it's gluten in as well. And she was like, no. And so my kitchen manager, ever since then, he says, no, just keep it in the package so I don't have to deal with people complaining.
Really? So he just searched their bun in the packet?
Yeah, he heats it up and puts it in the packet because it's just it's ridiculous. Some people are excessive.
That's ridiculous. That's insane.
Yeah, but that's a little bit off topic though.
It is off topic, but that sounds like a good topic to hit.
Yeah.
Diets and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Look out for that one. But it's been a pretty good talk today.
Yep,
I would say so. So if any of you guys or girls have any comments you'd like to mention on here, you could definitely shoot us a message or a tweet over at any social media platform at Bear Mind Trip. And look out for all of our videos coming out now on our set schedule on Mondays, Thursdays, and Sundays. Monday's a topic, Thursdays are fight talk, and Sunday's another topic. So you guys take it easy and go ahead and give us a follow and
shout us out.
Yeah, shout us out. Drop in on the comments. Let us know what your opinions are on this. So you guys have a good one, and we'll sign off now. See you next time.
Peace.